Me. Well, we're singing and painting and dry brushing, you see. Atomic mass transmissions, we gotta wash and do it with ease. Atomic mass transmissions, sing it everybody! Yar! That's enough of that. Hello everybody, welcome to Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I am your host, Dallas, and today we're going to be painting one of the Inhumans. One of the miniatures that I'm super excited about and was a lot of fun to work on. The only crystal, we painted up Lockjaw, we've painted up, Schick painted up Medusa on Tuesday, which looked super awesome. I really love the colors he was able to achieve in such a short time. And of course we did Black Bolt. Schick did up a Black Bolt. Mine got canceled because Twitch buggered and fell apart and kind of died. So we are on to Crystal, the fourth of our Inhumans. Let me get my brush in my right mouth. We're going to switch it over here and we're just going to start painting because that's what we're here to do. We're here to paint miniatures. Ta-da! So as you can see, we got our crystal. As I said, this was a lot of fun to design from a miniature standpoint. Really wanted to capture a lot of, she has the ability to manipulate the elements. So getting earth, wind, fire, and of course water. Water is a little separate bit. Swooshing around there. Lines up with her hand nicely. You can put this anywhere, like you can do whatever you want with that little bit. It's a separate little bit. But like that negative space under her foot to really show that lightness of air was a lot of fun to work on. Oh, everybody's talking away in there. So I'm going to mix up a couple different colors. I got a bunch of blues on my palette. I'm going to make them very, very thin. I'm using a wet palette today. I'll be switching to a well palette, back and forth, just doing all kinds of fun stuff. And what I'm thinking here is, I gotta get my reference pickup, is I'm thinking about reversing her costume. She's typically very, very yellow with a little black. Wow, man, you know what? I kind of like that. You know what? We're gonna do it. We're gonna go mainly yellow. We're gonna go mainly yellow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a bit of blues, and I'm going to paint them where I want my blacks. This is thin over top of the Zenith Prime that I start with. I tend to start with. I don't always start with it. You never know what I'm going to do. I'm a loose cannon. So that's going to be black. Belt's going to be black. My brush is actually very terrible. I have a very old brush and I just keep not changing it. So what this blue is going to do, this will be black. I'm going to make up a wash. That paint's very, very thin. I'm going to make up a wash and go over this. And that blue will add a nice undertone to the black instead of just being like a dull gray. It'll create like a nice undertone establishing color for the black to work with. It's going to look really, really great. I'm excited. And this is always a good idea for, something I play with every now and then. You just kind of want to establish a nice tone. White and black are desaturator colors. So we've talked about saturation and desaturation a little bit. And by adding a color underneath that wash, you're going to remove the white, and you're going to keep a lot of your saturation and just keep a lot of tone. We're probably going to do this with the yellow as well. We'll see what happens. I'm just paint with my heart right now. Got a little blue on that rock. Doesn't matter. That rock will be painted up. It'll look cool. It'll look cool enough. Collar, black. Typically I start with the face. I just had this blue out, decided to go with it. Gloves are black. Then we're going to do a little OSL on this fire. And the fire itself won't be OSL. OSL is actually object source lighting. And that's more of the light reflecting on areas around it. So we'll have some, with the shoulder being black, we'll be able to add some yellow to that shoulder to represent that light reflecting off this shoulder armor. I touched my miniature and I'm regretting it. There we go. There we go. It's alright. There's no mistakes. Can't mess up. You're just painting miniatures. Tactical rocks are now levitating. Yeah. No one stands around in the Marvel Crisis Protocol universe. There's too much action. A couple weeks ago, somebody asked, what is a random rock on a miniature? I'm like, it's not random. It's not a random rock. They're in a battle. There's rubble, stuff falling everywhere. How about the X-Wing news? Well, we posted a post. If you join in on February, you gotta say that right. You gotta say February 3rd, I believe. We're gonna be doing a whole stream about the future of atomic mass and all the wonderful stuff that we got in store. And like, I can't oversell this because, I mean, I can oversell it. I'll accidentally oversell it because I don't know it's actually being talked about. But all the fun stuff, I'm sure. There's a whole plan. Got a really, really bright, warm yellow here. Once again, very thin glaze over top of my Zenith Prime. I want some of that black to show through on this. I want that white and that black to create that volume. I wasn't loose-lipped. I said exactly what the post said. That was a Facebook post. You can go find the Facebook post. Mr. Gownport, I'm teaching you how to paint the yellow right now. First off, don't make lunch and then touch your miniature. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Are we getting feedback? Somebody mentioned feedback. Are we getting feedback? If we are, let me know. Yeah, Schick did a stream about bases. I'm sure I can do a stream about the city bases. There's a little buzz. Oh, sorry whoever that bothered. I can stop painting and troubleshoot. I'm not a troubleshooter when it comes to tech. So actually on the bases, I can talk a little bit about it. Like what the heck? Why not? Let's just do the base while we're here. Let me throw a little wash down here. Let me dig up a little, I need a little black. So I actually paint my bases the same way the studio bases are painted. The studio recipe is something I came up with. So it was very easy for me to adapt that to my miniatures. So what I do is I do a nice greenish gray as a wash. And this is over the Zenith Prime. This is exactly how a studio base would be done. There'll be a couple steps. So we'll just do it in between painting all the other stuff on our crystal here. Am I out of shot? Oh, terrible. Look at that, it's a wash. Green, gray. Rainy day, or what's it called? Chick really likes that paint color from Scale. You can turn that into a wash very easily. That's a great color for this. But you just want that, it's like a warm green gray is what you go for at first. Rainy day, rainy day. So we're gonna let that live like that for now. Just for now. Where is my next color I want? Oh, I'm just gonna grab a couple. That's a good color. That's a good color. That's a good color. Just random colors. I mean, wash, glaze. Glaze and wash are not things. They are actually techniques, is what I always say. Wash is any paint that is translucent that you want to go into a crevice. A glaze is a transparent paint that's thin enough you're not trying to let it pull up in the crevices, but just tint. Think like going and getting your photo taken at the Sears, and they put the gel over the lights to make it warm or cold, right? Like that's what you're trying to do with a glaze. It's not really a thing, it's a technique. So when you're just trying to shift the tone or the temperature, and the other one you're just trying to create contrast. Let's go ahead and base coat of skin. I just mixed something up on that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right, I'm gonna use like just a warm brown wash. I'll start applying this over the yellow. So we talk a lot about the different philosophies of colors. Black is all about the highlights. You know, you want a whole lot of black showing on black elements. You want like minimal size highlights. You want to, and then white is all about, you don't want white. You want to use like whites are only the highlights. Yellow to me can be many things. There's many different approaches to yellow. But for this, I'm going to go with the white philosophy here. Is I want to focus the brightest yellows to really establish the yellow on the highlights. This is messy on the back side. I'll clean that up later. And honestly, that's almost tabletop. Like, I would almost call that tabletop. Let's get a little red. That's the wrong red. Where'd my red go? Come with me on a little journey, friends. Oh, I need a green too. This is what happens when you clean your desk. This is what happens when you clean your desk. Why would an artist ever clean their desk? I will never know. So I'm going to put a little bit of red on a dry palette, a little bit of my base skin tone. They're just kind of mixed up. I'm going to use a little mix of medium. Just the artist medium to create a translucency. Artist medium will help you create translucency while not thinning it out like water, so it maintains some of that viscosity of paint, that body as we call it. I'm going to use this to do like a pre-shade on the skin. I don't like that little puddle there, so I'm going to clean that up with my brush. And this is just a pre-shade to add that warmth. It doesn't matter what skin tone you're working with. Light, dark, you want to establish some warmth in there. You can do that through purples, you can do that through reds. There's a myriad of ways to work on that. That's still drying. We're in that still drying phase on everything. I need my blow dryer. If I use my blow dryer right now, you guys would I'd definitely blow those speakers out. Definitely would blow those speakers out. So talk to me while we're drying. Tell me your dreams, your ambitions. What do you want to know about? Can we talk about how many base attacks Crystal has? Talk about this sculpt. What's your favorite part of the sculpt? What do you think of this cool effect on the negative space? I saw somebody mention a minute ago that my paints are very thin. Yeah, I use very thin paints. It's very hard to mess up when your paints are thin because you can just paint right over anything. Nothing is too thick, and I don't ever lose details, so you know, I'm able to adapt and move and change directions. You know, I could, even at this stage, I could just totally switch from red or yellow costume and go with something completely different because I haven't overworked any area because my paints are not mega thick. I'm going to go with a really, really, really warm brown. I'm going to start blocking in a little more deeper shadows. Browns are where it's at on the yellows. If you get, and as you gain confidence in developing sort of your philosophies of your different colors, you can actually switch up. I've done yellows that consist of teals instead of browns, and that's a very interesting kind of painting philosophy. It's all like just learning how to apply those colors in the right spots. That was from, I was walking one day and I was looking at cars, and there was this car in this parking lot there was a yellow car, and I kind of stopped and I was like looking at the paint job, and the shadows were all teals and rich blues, and I was like, wow, I've not really ever noticed that before. Like, it's so interesting. So I went home and I tried painting something yellow using the teals and stuff. It was a lot of fun. So for you really want that, like the for yellow and white, right? It's that, or yellow and black, it's that mid tone has to read yellow. Everything above it needs to be brighter yellow, but everything below it can kind of, you know, when I say below it, I'm talking about from mid-tone down. So your shadows are kind of mutable. You can kind of adapt and change stuff to get a unique and different feel. I use Chris, are you using Artist Medium to thin your paints on water? I use water to thin, but I use medium for certain things. So like if I want to, like on flesh, I want to create translucency, but I don't necessarily want to thin. Thinning is, to me, the word thinning your paint means making it looser or wetter. Using a medium doesn't, I mean, technically thins it, yes, but what you really want to do with medium, or what I do with medium, is I use it to more maintain the body of the paint while increasing the translucency. And sometimes that's more important than thinning. But I typically just use water. I'm just using water. The medium is for translucency. Let's push that dark brown right up into the deep shadows. Pink works as a base. Yep. Pink works as a great base to start your yellows. Totally do that. All you're doing is looking for something. You gotta think of it like this. It's like, let's pretend this is your miniature, right? Certain pigments, when you put them down, are very thin. They're you know, like this. You can kind of see through them, right? That's why people say you gotta put yellow, 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 right? Multiple coats. So if you put like an orange down, right, and you get a nice coat of orange, and you put yellow over top, what do you see through the yellow? You see a little bit of orange, which is just a darker shade of yellow. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's like with metals, right? When I put gold down, a lot of people talk about like you put brown and then you put gold over top of it. And then that way, when you have like that, because gold's more translucent, it takes multiple coats, so you can kind of see through it. So imagine the space between my fingers is where you're seeing the brown, and that makes it look like you've given it one good coat. But if you lay silver down and you put gold down, you have a brighter gold, because the silver is helping the gold stand out. And that's kind of what we're doing here with this yellow, right? By going over the white and then using a wash to kind of just tie it all up, and now I'm using a dark shade to actually create my shadows, I don't have to worry about multiple coats of yellow anymore. Probably out of focus because I just dropped her right wherever. I don't have to worry about multiple coats of yellow because I'm just trying to establish that yellow is that mid area. The brown and the wash and then my highlights is going to establish the actual yellows. And we're actually going to go one step darker on that brown even. One step darker on the brown. And I apologize for starting out with a sea shanty when Mr. Wilshick has been all in on the sea shanties the past couple days, and it's now in my head. So right now this probably looks very, very brown, but as we go back and highlight, we're going to bring that yellow right back in there. It's going to feel very, very yellow. Alright, that looks cool. I'll paint my fingernails. I painted all my fingernails on stream. Freehand discussion, I use my fingernail. It's fine. Alright, really, really dark brown. Really, really dark brown. We're going to let that dry a little bit. We're going to go back to the skin. Once again, I'm going to go back to my base color. Just the base color I picked. It's just a mix. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong skin tone. Just made one up. I'm going to add a little green. Once again, I'm not going thin with water. I'm going thin with artist medium. That's to maintain the body of the paint or the stickiness. While increasing the translucency. If there's any word I'm using a lot of words. Not everybody's in the same point in our path of art. That's kind of point of these streams is. We recognize that we're all in different points of the same path, right? You might just be starting out on your journey, and somebody else might be, years in on their journey. We're all in it together, though, and we're all working together to make cool little pieces of art on our miniatures. So if I use a word and you don't understand it, ask me. I'm happy to define it and talk more at length about something. And don't be afraid to ask. There's an old saying about stupid questions. There is none, right? Like, just because somebody knows something more, or you don't know something, that don't be afraid to ask. Let's talk about it. Thunderhead Stu is working away through a second MCP core set. That's awesome. Yeah, it's all about getting started, isn't it? Like we just love seeing people get started and get going on their journey of miniature painting and miniature hobby. Like there's so many tips and tricks that you don't pick up intuitively, and then you got to hear somebody say it, and you're like, oh wow, like building miniatures over a box, right? Like, I started building miniatures way back, way longer than I want to admit how old I am. And that's a trick that someone showed me, right? You build your miniatures over a box or an area, because, like, there's tiny parts to miniatures. So you build over a box or a lid or a special designated area. Recent one I never used was the blue tack. Like, great. Learning how to just thin paint, like, or glue even. Like, that's one thing. I think a lot of people spread this around. Are you ready? Are you ready, kids? Put your glue on something. We're just going tips today. Put your glue on something. I got this is a silicone puck. That doesn't matter. Here's a Marvel Crisis Protocol base. Put glue on the back side of this. So you have plenty of extra bases. We supply you with lots of bases. Put the glue in there and use a toothpick. Use the toothpick to apply glue to the part. And then that way you're not trying to use the glue bottle to be precise. You're using a toothpick to be precise. Much more precise. You're going to waste way less glue. It actually takes less glue, not more glue, to make stuff stick on miniatures. So by using a toothpick, you can apply the glue right where you want it and be more precise. That's how I glue everything together. Everything I glue by putting the glue on something and then applying it with a toothpick instead of the glue bottle. And test everything. Remember, measure twice, cut once. And that applies to miniatures. Like, see, make sure the part fits right. Double check that fit. Toothpicks are absolutely legendary hobby tools. 100% agree there, Wampa. A little green, a little red mixed together. No skin tone allowed in this mix. This is going to be a very, very dark brown. I'm not even going to apply water. Not even going to apply. Okay, there's probably water on the brush. I just want to create a very dark shade. For the skin. Side of the face is very much in shadows. I applied that almost like a wash. Once again, wash is a thing or a technique, not a thing. So when I say I applied it like a wash, that means I was very thick and heavy-handed. Let it pull in the recesses. We're going to make our eyes glowy later. Jezahu, I don't suppose Crystal comes with an alternate head with a long-haired look. We did not do the an alternate head for one Crystal. We did look at the long hair, and it's actually quite interesting. Like, she has that design in that hair, and making that work from an engineering standpoint and a painting. So, like, I would probably, if we were doing the long hair version, probably not sculpt that into the hair. So you would be left to freehand it. And also, by having it sculpted in, you're kind of locked into a very limited motion for the hair, because you're going to want that engineered to be in one good pull on the frame. So it actually presents a lot of interesting problems. Not something I don't think we couldn't overcome or anything, but we went with this look. I really like this look. I think she looks nice and sharp, and she has so much going on anyways. Adding long tussly hair that would probably be cut into 2 parts. Zenith priming helps establish those, Chris, where to place those highlights. Like that. When you look at the Zenith priming, it kind of tells you where to place generally. Like, and you don't have to be perfect. You know, unless you're going to competition, your highlights don't have to be placed perfect. I've definitely done tabletop stuff where I put highlights in 2 different angles that are contrary to each other, and it just didn't matter, because what it did is it still made the miniature look really, really cool. And no one's judging it hard enough in the game store to really care, you know. And once again, that gets into the philosophy of, like, you gotta decide what your miniature's destiny is. You decide the miniature's destiny. As we talk a lot about on the stream, you know, Schick and I, the miniature has a destiny and you get to choose it. So if this is just for tabletop, you can be much more loosey-goosey, much more free form, and just kind of let the art happen and let the highlights happen. It doesn't have to be perfect. That does not apply to competition, obviously. That becomes a different animal and a different destiny. Alright, see, I darkened that up, and I really focused on this side with that darker brown. Well, that got a little gross. So I'm kind of pushing the darkness toward the fire. This is my nice view angle, so I want this to be lighter, this area over here. So I'm just kind of thinking philosophically about that. And I want this area toward the fire to be darker, because then the darker it is toward the fire, the more fire light I can create on the miniature. And see, I'm actually doing the opposite now. I actually have this shoulder blade is lighter than over here. Once again, it doesn't matter. No one's going to notice that. You know, if I took this to the Path of the Worthy Painting Challenge, I'd be much more concerned over my highlight placements, but especially because I know the judge and I know what he's looking for. But for my little tabletop crystal, she's just the way I want it. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like the floating rocks. We talk, Schick and I talk a lot about, like, the different miniatures, and, like, when we get ambitious, like Hella was kind of one of our first really ambitious miniatures, and, like, testing what we can do with the material, right? You know, I'm working on my Medusa. Last night I was painting this. So once again, very cool technical. What we can do with plastic. And so we're constantly learning and evaluating and discussing new stuff when designing these miniatures and what we can do with them. So it's always evolutionary, right? It's always developing, growing, changing, adapting, taking a lesson, and running with it, and seeing what we can do next time, right? How can we push it further next time? And you know, things like crystal wouldn't have come along if we didn't try the Hella, or if you look at the Deadpool teaser, you know, there's definitely a Scarlet Witch, and that Scarlet Witch was one that's just like, you know, let's push and try this, like, and you know, it was just like, what can we do? And we made something really, I think, is really compelling and interesting. And that's what it's about. It's just like life, right? It's like learn a lesson, grow from the lesson. You know, constantly be improving and pushing and challenging yourself, and be willing to take that risk and see what happens and what shakes out. But then be humble enough or honest enough to be like, okay, well, this is what that did. What worked, what didn't work, how can we adapt and change it for the next thing? How can we go further next time? You know, higher, faster, further. Angela, we would have never got to Angela if we wouldn't have tried Hella, right? It's interesting. You're learning the material. You're learning what sculptors are capable of. You're learning what the production companies are capable of, and you're just pushing and growing. So back to our base. We were talking about bases earlier, and people want to know how to make a cool looking base. We're just going to do the base. I'm going to mix a little black. This is just regular old black paint mixed right into that green gray wash. And I'll use this to establish dark lines. So like the cracks, potholes, just to give them a little more refinement, a little more definition. And also, I like to think about the focus of the miniature and how it's going to be presented. It's like, once again, we got this area over here on crystal is very light. You can't see it. And I got this area around the pothole is very light. So I want to push a lot of this black green wash this way. I want to leave this very light. I'm going to apply 0 black green to this area, except for in the pothole and the very the crevices, but nowhere else. I'm not going to let it stretch out. And that gives me like a little spotlight right there. Same way with the curb. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to take that, I'm going to stretch it right out. As it dissipates, it doesn't matter. Less. Grab a little more black. Go into that line and paint this edge. And let's just paint this edge as well. So we got a dynamic light shift on that base. And we're going to let that dry and we'll come back to that. All right, where are we at? More to do on the yellow. I need a drink. I need a little sip of my waters. A lot of talking today. We're going to add an off-white to our base color yellow. We're going to start busting in some highlights. Once again, everything was so thin on the costume. All the paint was so thin that you see little imperfections, especially when you're right here with it. You see little imperfections. You see little areas where it's lighter than others. Those are the areas that says, please put a little highlight on me and just accentuate that imperfection, right? Just let it be part of the paint job. I'm not going for smooth. I'm going for cool, dynamic, interesting. Just using the side of the brush, not the tip of the brush. If I get a little messy, I use my cleanup brush. Once again, watch this. That trim, I'm going to use just the side of my brush. And just paint that top edge. Just like that. Gives that little highlight and lets that ribbing pop out. Yeah, there's a time and place for smoothness. This ain't it. And trust me, I love a good, smooth, painted miniature. But it's, once again, it's that establishing the destiny of the miniature. Like I love painting a real smooth miniature. You know, painting something that's like, somebody goes, "Did you airbrush that?" And you're like, "Nah, actually, that's all hand brush." It's a very very rewarding skill to pick up, but at the same time, it's not for every project, right? Not every project needs to be butter smooth. Sometimes it's just let's get painted and let's make it just look cool. And that's what we're about today. I want to get my crystal painted, put her on a table. Maybe throw down against Pagani. I'm getting lost a little bit. I'm just putting just accentuating those little wrinkles in the cloth. Come on with a little bit more light white. If you watched this stream before, you know I like little dots. So here come the little dots. We're going to do a broader highlight on that leg, on that part. Dots just add that visual interest and texture. Pointillism. I painted one miniature ever in full pointillism. It was quite the tedious situation. This is more stippling. I'm not really using different colors to establish form. It's just highlighting. and I'm using those dots to create that little bit of texture. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Let's grab this color, and that color, and that color. Where'd that red go? A little bit of that red. Mix that all together. Very, very thin. Oh yeah, I'm using two brushes. If I'm not using two brushes, there's something wrong. I usually use two. One for what I call my blender or my cleanup. I do a lot of two brush blending. Not doing a whole lot on this. I'm not doing what I would consider actual two brush blending. Two brush blending has an actual technique. What I'm doing is definitely just more of using a second brush to clean up and to soften. I'm gonna mix up a black wash. Yeah, Des and Troy. It was like the worst wash brush in the world. It's too pointy. So black wash right over those blue elements. That way you can still see that blue shining through just ever so slightly. Just gives a little more depth to those areas. Des and Troy, oh my god, that joke is so funny. Does she have the power of heart? Maybe she's got the power of lockjaw. I'll tell you right now. That's my boy. Oh, my lockjaw's way on the other side of the other side of the studio. I'd grab it and show it. In case y'all didn't see it. Almost done with my Inhumans. Super fun little group. I think Schick and Pagani really got the feel of them. Like playtesting these, I was like, I just love this group. Like these are a lot of fun to play together. Like I said, just a little black wash. Turn those blue areas black. The blue is there to establish some tonality. Okay, that belt's a little thinner. Switch back to my tighter brush. Put a little wash in the belt, gotta make it black. Gotta keep the tonality of blue shining through. That's my song, I sing to you. I hope you like the stream. We'll be back next week, you see, girl. There we go. I'll come through and tighten up those lines later as we go along. Alright, let's put some yellow in the hair. Grab a little yellow, a little more yellow, add to the brown. I got some red brown out here. Hey, you got bumper music, what can I say? So I'm just going to use this to establish some yellow in some broad areas of the hair. I'm actually looking at Brendan's paint job, see where he put him. I need a little more dark brown. Am I going to do OSL tonight? Probably not. I got 3 more minutes. I just noticed. I'm sure somebody would have messaged me soon enough. So probably what we'll do is come back next week and work on the OSL. I need to get the miniature to a place to even do the OSL. So kind of got to paint the miniature first. So we'll probably do that next week. We'll keep working on our crystal. Oh, you know what? We can do the base real quick. Let's finish off our base. Next step would be, so we've done the green-gray wash. We added some black to that to take it to some darker areas. We only got 2 more steps left. I gotta reach over here in my giant pile of paints, setting on the other side of the room. Not really the other side of the room, but pretty far over here. We're gonna dry brush. I'm gonna grab a big chunky brush. Just something like maybe, any old dry brush will do, honestly. Sometimes I get picky and I don't even know why. Oh, thanks, Wampa. Yeah, like I said, we're really proud of this miniature, and we had a lot of fun working on her and getting her made. So I'm going to dry brush. This is like a light gray. Like I said, this is exactly the recipe of the studio ones. This is the same recipe I use for my personal collection. I don't want to knock out that dark areas, but I do want the edges of the concrete highlighted. So just very, very lightly. A good dry brush should barely change the color. You're just wanting to pick those edges gently. Something like that. Looks super nice. I'm going to grab Dallas. Do you seal your miniatures? I do. I just grab Tester's dull coat. Throw that on there. I do actually recommend, if you watch my video I did for Gen Con, I'll go to Atomic Mass Transmissions. The YouTube's has our bunch of videos. I do a video on metallosity, and we paint up an Ultron. I talk about, to increase metallosity, a lot of times I'll dull coat my miniature after it's all done, and then I go back through and I highlight the metals one last time to really give them pop. So it's a light gray. I'm sorry there, Lancelot. It was a light gray over the two washes, and then I added just pure titanium white to the gray, and I'm doing a light dry brush of that. And I'm focusing on that spotlight zone we picked earlier, right? If you look, that spotlight zone. And the edges. I want the edges of stuff to be nice and crisp. I want those nice crisp edges. Now the last step for the studio bases. We're gone over a little bit. Sorry, BK. Give me one more second. We're almost done. Is I take a warm brown, like a very warm brown. Let me grab some of that. Take a very warm brown. I thin that down a whole lot with water. Just water. Just a little water. And what I do is, you want to add warmth. You need to add a little warmth. So I might come back here against that curb. I put a little bit of that brown in there. Is that clear and in focus? There we go. Maybe around this pothole. Put a little bit of that warm brown in there. Use that second brush to like whisk some of that away. Maybe a little bit in that crevasse. Maybe a little bit right here. And what this does, it adds that warmth that's missing from all those grays and greens and blacks. The gray and green and black is very cold, right? Makes the concrete look like concrete, but it's very flat. So by adding a little warm brown, very gently, very light, very subtle, you add that warmth in there, and it just makes the concrete look more alive, dynamic, more visually interesting. And you can just kind of pick and choose wherever you want it. There's no wrong way. Just keep it subtle. Maybe there's a little bit right up front. Just enough to give the eye something visually interesting to see. And that's it. That's how the studio bases are painted. That's all. Boop. I guess tonight I'll work on Medusa. Next week we'll be back for more crystal. Dun 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. I gotta switch back to my other camera. This camera. And that one. So, hopefully that was interesting, informative, intuitive, and evocative. Innovative. And you learned something, and we'll be continuing our yellow. I think we're almost done. I want to do a little bit more highlight. We'll highlight our blacks. We'll finish up the face, and then we'll start painting on some, the OSL. We'll do the fire, and we'll put some glow up on the shoulder and stuff like that next week. So Remember, check out Mr. William Schick. He will be painting on Tuesdays, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Ah, boy, I grabbed the wrong card. I forgot to change it, sorry. 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on our Twitch channel. You can also check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for all the latest news, information, and announcements. Of course, we'll be getting back to the Painting Protocol Challenge very soon. We'll be announcing that very soon for next month. Join me back next Thursday. We'll be working on our crystal. And until then, we'll catch you later. Have fun, and bye. See you, heroes. Ba-dum-bum, ba-dum-bum-bum. I forgot it's sea shanty today, and I forgot to sing my sea shanty today. Atomic Mass Transmissions!